Franny. Oh, there's a big complaint that we gotta wash our hands. Hi, Franny. Oh, hi, baby. Hi. Oh, good girl. Okay, we're gonna wash our hands and we can pet you. Yes, we can. Okay. Good girl. How's Franny doing? Good girl. How's the baby? Are you taking good care of your baby? Okay, now we can pet you. Oh, good girl. How's it girl? This is Deb. Say hello.
ADW volunteers, we are going through the protocols of coming to the puppy studio to do the puppy sitting. And we have Xenia here reading the protocols after she already washed her hands, removed her shoes, and is now over here. If Franny was in the room, she would have said hello to Franny. So she's going through the protocols, and then she also needs to read the daily log to make sure to see what's going on there.
Just this, right?
Yep, the notebook. And that way you have a thorough idea of what went on today for Franny and the puppies. Then after you read the protocols, you should walk over here to the feeding board. You want to read all of the feeding instructions, and then you want to walk all the way to the refrigerator just to make sure that there isn't a bowl of food sitting in here already prepped. So, lo and behold, there is a bowl of food already prepped for her. It's helpful if everybody can leave notes as to how much food is left in the bowl that you're leaving. And that way I have, on camera, I have a good idea of actually how much food Franny's eaten. With this many puppies at this age, it's really important that she's eating as much as possible, and so that she's producing enough milk for all of these guys. So the puppies are 3 weeks old now, and they have moved out of the bedroom, out of their whelping box, into the studio. And what we've done is we've set up an exercise pen, and we've made it small. They don't get this entire section because then it'll be too difficult for us to actually litter box train them. You've done that, then you can come over and say hi to the puppies. You can probably hear a few of them are cooing in the background. So that's a pretty normal puppy noise. If she was wandering, that's Gold, now he knows I'm here, so he is going to get up, but he was just laying there kind of making that noise. So if he were wandering around the pen aimlessly, making that same noise, then I would probably try to either, I might pick him up. So I'm going to support his butt, and I'm going to go under the front. And we really prefer if everybody is as low to the ground as possible when they're picking up the puppies. They are getting pretty wiggly. So he's on my lap. He's fairly content. And notice I'm petting him very, very gently and slowly, pretty slowly. And you just want to be mindful of calm, gentle touch, because we don't want to overstimulate the puppies. He's fairly content, but I can anticipate that he's going to try to start fussing again here in a second, I think. Maybe not. There. So I'm going to put him back down. Again, I'm going to lift him under his chest and his butt. And he's going to just go back down. I can also feel that some of this bedding, even though I only changed it maybe an hour ago, is wet. So the way we want to do that is, if you're going to need to change the bedding, you can either do spot treatment and just pick up certain pieces of it. So if I really don't want to actually disturb the sleeping puppies right now, but you would just move them, pick up the towel, put it in the dirty puppy laundry over here, and then you would get new bedding from the bins over here. Most everything is labeled. I'll make my way out. Also need to be very mindful of your footing. They move pretty quickly. So we have pillowcases, there's also hand towels over there, but these pillowcases are really nice because we have a lot of them, and you can put them underneath these mats. So if somebody had peed on the mat, I could lift the mat up. This mat is still, or this one is still dry. I would just pick up the pillowcases that are underneath it, maybe do a little spot dry work on the rubber mat with the paper towel, and then just put it right back. When you're putting things back, you also have to be mindful that there isn't really a large space between where the puppies can go, and so I want to make sure this isn't up like that so that somebody can get underneath it while you're taking Franny for a walk, because that would put a puppy into a fairly significant amount of distress if they were stuck like that. We are also being really mindful of the temperature in this pen. So right now, one of them says that it's 67. One side, there is a thermostat, a very small white square over here by the doggy door, and that's because there is a little bit of a draft there. We're not really too worried about the puppies in that draft, only because they can control their body temperature and regulate their body temperature now. I don't want it getting too cold. I think if it drops below 65, then we would want to put some kind of a barrier up there or go turn up the heat. So that is the outdoor remote that is telling us what temperature it is by the doggy door. And then the screen shows you what temperature it is over here on the brick. And believe it or not, I actually have seen several puppies over by the doggy door choosing to sleep over there, so they are pretty happy. The best way to pick up these puppies, since this guy is sleeping, I want to pick up his head, and this is actually Silver, so she's a girl. So I'm going to reach under, and then I'm going to pick up her butt too. So I've got her very, very securely. Even if she were to roll, I could get her. And I'm going to put her back down just because she's pretty content there. I'm going to move this little yellow guy. So again, hand under the chest. The other hand goes under the butt. And then I could move him wherever I want. Again, we really don't want people standing with the puppies. So if you want to sit with them, I can sit on this nice little brick. You can also grab a dry towel and just sit on the floor with them in their pen. We really don't want a lot of handling and moving the puppies constantly. You are welcome to pick them up and engage with them, I would say maybe one time during your shift. So one time per puppy, pick up, snuggle, back down. And it is also very helpful when Franny comes in here to nurse the puppies to help her by moving all of these enrichment items out of her way. She also has been coming up and doing it herself. She is moving this stuff. So just be mindful that if you see her coming into the pen, you can move it and make a space for her, and that way she doesn't scoot things out of the way herself. Today is the first day that I have put their litter tray in here. I have elected to put some cellophane on it. We struggle each time to try to find an ideal surface to put the litter on because the pan is so slippery. We only want a very thin little layer of litter in here. And in a moment, I'm going to go over how we want you to help us potty train the puppies, litter box train the puppies, really. So right now we've got all of this, all of the things in this pen that you see serve a purpose, believe it or not. This is a different surface than this is, as is this, and the towel, and the yoga mat. And by exposing the puppies to all of these different textures and surfaces and heights, this stuffed animal here has a face. So getting them used to all of these things actually contributes to their reference library. And later in life, it helps to make them a better problem solver. These were over here. Then I would lift up all of the dirty bedding. It would all go into the dirty puppy laundry bin over here. You can wipe off the mats, but it's really not necessary for this. They do get cleaned and washed every morning. So really you just need to pick up all the mats, all of the bedding, put put the sheets, there's a bottom layer of sheets that goes down, these rubber mats, and you don't need to really worry about putting in all the enrichment items again appropriately. If you take them out, you can just leave them out and just note it in the notebook that you changed the bedding, so you left the enrichment items out. Which is also okay for them, because it's also something different for them to have nothing in here. And exposing them to a different thing is also a very good thing. Pick up a puppy in order to change the bedding. I would. And ideally we would want to wait if everybody's already done nursing. Ideally we wouldn't really want to wake them up for this process. But for the video purposes, I'm gonna pick this puppy up. So under the chest again, under the butt. That wasn't her squeaking, that was the friend. And then they are all gonna go into this little confined space. So all 7 puppies in here woke up, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna pee. So I'm gonna pick him up and I'm gonna place him over here in this little funny litter box. And usually they really don't kind of like it at first. Might just try to fall asleep in there. Did you actually pee? No, you didn't. So he's having a pretty hard time, so I'm gonna lift him back out. If you had just seen a puppy pee, you could also pick them up, and because obviously I'm not lifting him up with the butt thing again, because if he's peeing, I don't want to disrupt that. So I'm kind of doing over the belly and over the side. I also happen to have my fingers hooked up here so that he still has his head supported. So there we go, in and out. Ideally, we do still want their butts picked up, but when they're peeing and we're doing the litter box training, it's really about being fast. So if he had just peed, I would still put him in the litter box, because he's going to eventually make the association that, every time I pee, I kind of seem to be in this litter box, and he will actually make that association eventually. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook my fingers around his little shoulder here, and I'm really got a good grip on him. Into the box, and then possibly out of the box. The pinkies are kind of right around his neck and in front of his shoulders, kind of. And then my ring finger is behind his front leg. And all of my fingers are wrapped around his belly, and my thumbs are up top. And just into the box.
Okay.
So we always have the feeding instructions for Mama up here. We also will have them eventually for the puppies. So what it says right now is that Franny needs to eat as much as possible. If you think she is hungry, regardless of the feeding schedule, please feed her. Otherwise, the feeding schedule is at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., 4 p.m., and 8 p.m. She usually eats a little midnight snack too, around 12 a.m. The instructions are to give her 2 cups of kibble. So the bowls are up here. If there isn't a measuring cup that you can see down here, there are plenty up here in this little pot. And so I'm going to reach into her little kibble bin, and that's actually a half cup, and there is already a measuring cup in here. So I'm going to do 1, 2 cups. And it says to either mix it with meat, and it also says to add a cup of rice. So then I'm going to go over to the refrigerator. And typically we have Tupperware containers either labeled, or there is a note in there that says that meat was just cooked. This pot of meat right here was just cooked. So I'm not going to label it. I know that Pam will label it tonight. Then we do have a bowl of food that was already made, but for the purposes of this video, we are showing you how to make it. We have some goat's milk, we have some rice, and we have some squash. So the instructions for lunch only indicated goat's milk, or excuse me, only indicated rice. So I'm going to take my rice. So then Gonna scoop in. She already has the 2 cups of kibble in here, so then I'm just gonna add my 2 cups of meat. And a little 1/2 cup of rice. And depending on the consistency of the meat, this meat is pretty thick, so I'll add a little bit of water to it. And then I'm gonna stir it with a spoon or a fork. Now, if Franny didn't eat this, or if she ate half of it, what you can do for the next person is you can actually come back and measure it to see how much is left. That really is the most helpful way of doing it, so that the next person doesn't have to do it, and hopefully when you come, they will have done that same for you. 2 cups of kibble and a 1/2 cup of rice. Makes it really easy. If it was, and since it is kind of already mixed, but if it wasn't, you can just put the amount, so if it was 1 cup left over of meat, rice, and kibble. Currently the puppies are teething. So a really helpful way when they are up, another thing that they might be fussing for is that their mouth is hurting them. So you can come over, grab one of these out of the fridge, or a few. There are also a couple in the freezer door up top. So you can come in. The important part of this process for them, and especially as they are going to mature over the next few weeks, their teeth are going to get very sharp. They're going to start putting their mouths on you and also your clothing. And it's really important that when they do come up to you, that you specifically hold the teething ring for them. You have to be mindful to kind of maneuver it in front of their face, because they are going to kind of forget as to what they're doing. And they're still going to try to come over to your hands and your clothes. The reason we want to use the teething rings, yes, it is very cute, and I love it too when the puppies are sucking on my fingers, but it's not going to be cute for very long. And what we find is that it actually encourages them to put their mouth on us in a negative way when they're older. And they're definitely not biting us when they're older, but it's just an undesirable behavior for service dogs to be putting their mouths on people and their clothes.
Let me just get at that.
And this part has distilled water in it, so it's colder on their gums. These don't need to actually be refrigerated, but I thought it would be nice. And the texture is what I think they're going to enjoy on their gums. First aid kits are located under the counter to the left of the sink. The canine first aid kit is pretty well labeled, and the human first aid kit is in this blue little pack here. There are also a few things up here, not much for human use, but there is some peroxide in the event of some kind of an emergency, but mostly we would just like you to call me if there's a problem. The emergency contact list, if you are in a panic and your phone isn't working, you can come right over here. You can also just take this off of the wall. You can come into the bedroom, and you can use the phone here on the desk. So it's just like a regular hotel phone. You have to dial 9 to get out, and it does say on top of here what to do. Pick up the phone and then call whoever you need. So if we're gonna take Franny for a walk, hey Franny, do you wanna go for a walk? She actually looks like she's hungry right now, but for the purposes of this video, her leash and her collar live over here. You can, whichever you're really more comfortable with. She would probably prefer the long leash because she can do more smelling and just a little bit more exploration outside of the studio. But if you are uncomfortable with the flexi lead, you can use a regular leash. We always remove her collar when she comes back in, And poop bags are located here. Always bring an extra poop bag. She poops a lot. So then we're gonna come back. Depending on what door you're gonna go out, you can go out this way. But if you wanna go out on the back side, it's helpful if you pick up your shoes and you spray them with this. It's just a bleach mix. It's just a precaution, just an added precaution. So then we're gonna over here. I'm gonna put my shoes on outside and I'm gonna take her for a walk. And she can walk around on the grass out here and she can poop and pee out here. She cannot poop and pee on the medicine wheel, which is the labyrinth looking thing over in the middle of the property.